Good morning, everyone. Today we will discuss about bimetallic transition metal complex. So, what do we mean by bimetallic transition metal complexes? We are talking about these type of complexes when we say bimetallic complex. So, here you can see in this picture we have two metal atoms present in a single complex. So bimetallic means two metal atoms are present, or you can say two metal ions are present in the single complex, and you call them bimetallic complex. So you can see here two examples are given. First is an example of the iron complex in which two iron atoms are involved, and each of the iron atom is bonded to cyclopentadienyl, which is behaving like a pentaheptoligand, and one carbonyl. So each of the iron atom is attached to them. But in addition to that, we have mu2CO. So what does it mean? We have a carbonyl present as a bridging ligand between these two metal atoms. So since we have two such fragments, so two carbonyls they are present as a bridging ligand, and apart from them, these two metal atoms they have a single bond between them. This is a direct bond and no bridging ligand is involved. So another case is possible when the two metal atoms in the single complex they do not have a direct bond between them. Rather, they are attached by some bridging ligand. So in this example, you can see we have two titanium atoms, and here the naphthalene. This is the C10H8 behaving like a decaheptoligand. So 10 electronic contributions is coming. So this is also bridging ligand behaving like a bridging ligand apart from the hydrides present here. So and apart from all these, we have two cyclopentadienyl attached to each of the titanium. So you can see here, when we study the bimetallic complexes, we can have the first category of bimetallic complex in which the two metal atoms they have a bond between them, and the second category is when the two metal atoms they do not have any bond between them, rather they are rolled together by some sort of bridging ligand. Here, the metal-metal bond it most often concerns the two identical metals, and even two identical inorganic or organometallic metal ligand fragments. So, you can have a direct metal-metal bond, or it could be like two metal ligand fragments they are attached together by means of some bridging ligand. So, in this manner, the bimetallic complexes are formed. Now we know that on the when we are talking about the transition metals, so on the two metal atoms we have d orbitals involved in the bridging because we are talking about the transition metals. So when the transition metal atoms are involved here, we can have a dz square, dxy, and dxz, dyz, and dx square minus y square orbitals are involved. These are the d orbitals which are present on the metal atom, and you know that in the transition metals, the valence electron they are present in the d orbitals. Like in the 3D series, they are present in the 3D orbitals, like from scandium to zinc, and then we have 4D series, 5D series. In all these transition metals, the d orbitals are involved, and their suborbitals d z square, x y, y z, x z, d x square minus y square. These are 5D orbitals they are involved in the bonding. So whether the interaction has to take place between the two metal atoms or the metal and the ligand, these d orbitals are playing a role here. Now, how they combine together, how they overlap, that we can understand by the molecular orbital treatment of such complexes. So, in the ideal case, if you see, if a bond has to be formed between the two similar metal atoms, then how that bond will be generated? So we can see that a coaxial is when it is along the axis of the orbital. So when the coaxial interaction takes place, we get a sigma bond, and eventually after that we can have two lateral interactions also, and these lateral interactions they result into pi or sigma bond. Actually, what type of interaction is taking place? It also depends upon the number of valence electron available in the metal orbitals. How many electrons are present in the metal orbital? Or you can say it depends upon the electronic configuration of that particular metal atom. Generally, both the metal atoms are similar in any of the bimetallic complex. So, its electronic configuration actually decides how many bonds will exist in a thermodynamically stable manner between the two metal atoms. Now, if you can see the dz square orbitals of each metal, it coaxially overlap to make a sigma bond. So we know that according to the molecular orbital theory, we can have a sigma bonding and sigma anti-bonding orbital. Then the xz orbital of the each metal atom, they laterally overlap to give rise to a bond. So that lateral overlap will give you a pi bond, right? And the dxz orbitals do similarly. So the behavior of xz and yz orbital, they are same. Then finally the dx orbital can overlap according to another lateral mode to form the bond. And the similar is the behavior of dx square minus y square orbitals present on the each metal. So in this manner, the two metal atoms, they their orbitals overlap together. So here you can see these are the two d z square orbitals, and they are overlapping coaxially along their axis. They are overlapping. Then the dx, y, and yz orbital, they are overlapping laterally, and this lateral overlap actually results into the formation of pi bonds. Now, it is well understood that when such overlap take place, we will get one bonding orbital and one anti-bonding orbital. One orbital will be having lesser energy, and one orbital will be having higher energy. So this is well understood that the number of molecular orbitals, those are resulting from such interactions, they will be equal in the number of the atomic orbitals undergoing this overlap. So in the last category, you can see this delta type of overlap. So this delta bond it is actually a very weak bond. Now you can see the type of overlap, they are overlapping front to front, and therefore a very weak interaction takes place between them. And whenever a weak interaction is there, you know that the energy of such molecular orbital is very high as compared to the sigma and pi molecular orbital. So this means that although the delta molecular orbital is of bonding type, because when the two orbitals will overlap, one will be the bonding, right, and other will be the anti-bonding. So although the one of the delta molecular orbital is of bonding type, it is the last populated one. Why? Because it is having the higher energy as compared to sigma and pi orbitals. We know that the electronic configuration, in the electronic configuration, when the electrons are filling inside the molecular orbitals, what will happen? They will go first to the orbital of the least energy, right? And then according to the energy difference between the molecular orbitals, now the electrons will fill inside them. So when such filling is taking place, the delta orbitals, due to their higher energy, they are the last who in which the electron is going. Now there are two delta molecular orbital, right? But the second one, that is delta x square minus y square, it has a too high energy. Why? Because it will be the anti-bonding orbital, right? When you get a two delta molecular orbital, one will be anti-bonding, one will be bonding. So the bonding will be at least having a chance that maybe if electrons are available, they can go there. But the anti-bonding delta, it will have too much high energy that electron cannot reach them because of its strong sensitivity to the ligand field. So due to the very high energy of the anti-bonding delta orbital, now there is a very little chance that electrons are going to be present in there. Now here you can see the formation of the bond between the two metal atoms, uh, or you can say the metal ligand fragments MLN MLN. So in this manner you can explain the formation of bimetallic complexes. So on each of the side I have one metal fragment, that is metal L and N, metal Ln. So n number of ligands are involved, but here in this diagram we are discussing only the bond formation between the metal atoms. So we are ignoring the orbitals of ligand involved. Then you can see that on each of the metal, you will have vacant d orbitals or filled d orbitals. That depends upon the electronic configuration. And you can have dxy, dyz, dxz orbital, then dz square, dx square minus y square orbitals involved here. So now you can see this is a molecular orbital diagram of metal-metal bond in the bimetallic complex, and whenever the dz square orbital, because they are overlapping in the coaxial manner along their axis, so you will get one sigma bonding and one sigma anti-bonding orbital. Then after that, your dxy it is undergoing the sidewise overlap, front to front. So this result into formation of delta 1 star, and similar is the case of your dx square minus y square. So it is undergoing the overlap, and delta 2 and delta 2 star orbitals are formed. Now both of them, they are weaker interactions. Now dxz, dyz, these orbitals, they are similar in their energy, and when the overlapping, sidewise overlapping takes place, you get pi bonding and pi anti-bonding orbitals. So in this manner, you can see this is the way you can draw the molecular orbital diagram. And now, according to the availability of the electrons, you will fill these molecular orbitals, and you will get the electronic configuration of your bimetallic complex. So the population of electron, that could be present only up to this pi star orbital. It is above that, the energy is too high that electrons cannot be present at that much high energy. That will be of anti-bonding nature, right? So this will make the complex unstable if the electron goes beyond that. So if you fill the electrons, these electrons will be exclusively present in these lower energy molecular orbitals. Now let us discuss different categories of the metal bonds in the bimetallic complexes. So first I have here a single metal-metal bond. In these type of complexes, you have a single bond between the two metal atoms. So this is tantalum and tantalum, and only one bond is present between them. The other two bonds they are via the bridging ligand. So other two hydrides are also present, acting as a bridging ligand. So in these complexes, we are only considering the metal-metal bond, right? The metal-metal bond in the bimetallic complex. Again, in this complex, you have two manganese atom having one single bond between them, and no bridging ligand is present. So here you can consider a fragment MLN, where M is your manganese and L is the carbonyl, and N is what? It will be 5. So Ml5, Mn5. Two metal ligand fragments, they are attached together by a single bond. So here you have a single metal-metal bond, and the example is having the D1 case. D1 is the electronic configuration on each of the metal atoms. So one electron and one electron, a total of 2 electron you have. And obviously when you have 2 electrons, they both will go to the bonding sigma molecular orbital, and the electronic configuration will be sigma 2. And also in case of the D7 compounds, when you have 7 electrons on each of the metal atom, how they will fill? They will first go to the sigma, then pi, then delta 2, delta star 2, and pi star. This will be the electronic structure. So each of the two metal fragments, they can be considered as a radical, and therefore as the X ligand for the neighboring metal atom. So this says that the part of the this part of the compound, like the entire fragment of the other metal with its ligand, you can consider it as a ligand for the metal. So this binuclear complex is therefore dimer if the two halves are the same in the examples below. So in both these examples, you have two equal halves, and due to this, we call such ligand as dimer. So before the Ta-Ta bond formation, you get D1 plus D1, and in the Ta-Ta complex, you have D0 configuration. And before the Mn-Mn bond formation, it was D7 and D7, and in the Mn-Mn complex, it becomes D6. Then we have double metal-metal bonds. The two bonds, double bond is present between the two metal atoms. So we have two examples here. double bond between the two tungsten atoms, and double bond between the two iron atoms. So there are many compounds belonging to the family D2 plus D2, leading to the configuration that is sigma 2 and pi 2. So two electrons are present on each of the metal. So you have D2 D2, that is total 4 electrons will be filled inside the MO of your bimetallic bond. So it will be, the configuration will be your sigma 2 and pi 2. And also for the D6 plus D6 type of structure, you have sigma 2 pi 4, then delta 2 delta star 2 and pi star 2 electronic structure. So in this manner, you can see the diagram here. The double bond length is the 2.92 angstrom between the two tungsten and 2.515 angstrom between the two iron. So you can see easily that they are not dimers, because they are not exactly two equal fragments attached together. You cannot call them dimers, but yes, they are a bimetallic complex containing the double metal-metal bond. Then you have triple metal-metal bond. Triple bond is present between the two metal atoms. So they are provided by the families D3 configuration and your D5 configuration. So in this you have D3 configuration, and here you have D5 configuration. So when you have a D3 configuration of both the metal atoms, your electronic structure will be sigma 2 and pi 4. And for D5, you have sigma 2, pi 4, delta 2, delta star 2 type of electronic structure. So both of these complexes, they are of molybdenum, and they have this characteristic of forming triple bond between them. Now, the ligand is actually deciding your bond length between the two molybdenum. So, when you have a CH2SiMe3 group involved as in the place of your R, the distance is 2.17 angstrom, and when you have NMe2 as a ligand, then it becomes slightly increased. The distance between the two metal, it slightly get increased, and now it is 2.21 angstrom. So the other ligand, those are present on the metal atom, they are also deciding the characteristic of this bimetallic bond. Now this is the semi-bridging carbonyls present on each of the molybdenum. So before the metal-metal bond formation, it is D5 plus D5, and in the M2 complex you have D2. After the formation of the triple bond here, the two D3 metals of MOR3 fragment becomes D0 in the triply metal-metal bonded dimer. On the other hand, the D5 fragments in the MOCpCO2 give rise to a triply bonded MO dimer in which the MO atoms are D2. So, the resulting electronic configuration could be different from that of the metal atom, and you can here see that the bond order of the metal carbonyl dimer, you can calculate it because they follow the 18 electron rule. So, these type of complexes, the bimetallic complexes having triple bond between the metal atoms, they are following the 18 electron rules. So this remains true if the dimer contains both the Cp and carbonyl ligand. For example, this is the dimer, right? Your CpCO2MO, MoCO2Cp. This can be written as like this. And if the Y is the MO-MO bond order, what is the bond order? So how you will calculate the value of Y? So first of all, we will calculate the number of valence electron. Number of electron in the valence shell. So then they should be 18, right? So suppose you take NMO, that is the number of your bonds, the electrons contributed by the metal atom, then 2Nl plus Nx plus Q. So if you put up all the values here, so since your electronic configuration is 6, right? D3, D3, so you have 6 electrons from the molybdenum, then 2 electrons from the carbonyl both, so you have a total of 8 electrons plus Y is your, suppose your bond order, that is the number of bonds involved, and plus 1. So here you can calculate that Y is equal to 3. So that is your number of bonds between the metal and metal atom. Now the molybdenum triple bond in this complex is 2.2 angstrom long, whereas the length of the single MO-MO bond is 2.78 angstrom in the dimer. So The single bond length and the triple bond length, they are different, which is its precursor. So shortening is indeed very large, from 2.78 angstrom to 2.22 angstrom, and this indicates the strength of the bond. Now we can also have a quadruple metal-metal bonds in type of complex, and here we have four bonds between the two metal atoms. So again, we have the examples given here of a rhenium complex and molybdenum complex. So they have a negative charge over them, and they can have a counter cation 2 Li plus and 4 Li plus triple. Since they have a negative charge over them, they are behaving like an ion, and with the anion you need to have some cation, right? So here the counter cation is the lithium ion. So these type of bimetallic complexes, they are provided by the family of D4 metal fragments, and they lead to quadruply metal-metal bonded dimer having the sigma 2, pi 4 and delta 2 electronic configuration. So when each of the metal is having 4 electrons, you will get a total of 8 electrons to be filled inside, and that you will fill according to the orbitals from their lower energy to higher energy. So you will fill the electrons in the molecular orbitals accordingly. So after the formation of the quadruple bond, each D4 metal fragments become D0 in the dimer. So before the quadruple metal-metal bond formation, it was D4 and D4, and when the bond formation has taken place, now the dinuclear complex is D0, right? Then in the dimer, you see this is Re2Cl8 negative. This is the dimer. The number of valence electron is 16. If all the chlorine are counted as X ligand, now each rhenium fragment must be counted as monoanionic and can be described in the form Rex4 plus Y negative. So this is indicating your say, one part of the dimer, right? So since the two negative charges on the dimer, so on one fragment you have one negative charge involved, and this Y is indicating the number of bond between the rhenium, right? So they are also following the 18 electron rule. So how you can calculate the number of bonds between the two rheniums. So NeV is equal to Nre, that is number of electron provided by the rhenium, plus 2Nl plus 2 plus NH plus Q. So Q is the charge actually. So you have one negative charge over this ion. So 7 electrons are contributed by the two rheniums. Then 0 electrons are contributed by L. Then 4 electron by X. Okay, and plus charge is your -1. So when you calculate this, total 16 electrons are present. So when you calculate this, you get a Y is equal to 4. So this says that 4 bonds are present between the two rhenium atoms. So the rhenium-rhenium distance, that is 2.24 angstrom, this is lower than the rhenium-rhenium distance in the metal itself. The metal itself, it was a 2.71 angstrom, but this becomes much shorter when they are combined by the quadruple bonds and form a bimetallic complex. So the strength of the quadruple rhenium-rhenium bond is only 85 plus 5 kilocalorie per mole, including the 5 kilocalorie per mole for the fourth bond. Fourth bond is what? It is the delta bond, which is as weak as a hydrogen bond. So when you have a single bond between the metal, it is generally a sigma bond. When you have a double bond between two metals, the first one is the sigma, second is the pi bond. When you have a triple bond between the two metal atoms, the first is the sigma and two are the pi bonds. But what happens when you have a quadruple bond, when four bonds are present between the two metal atoms? So the fourth bond you encounter is as the delta bond, and this delta bond, as we have seen, that it is formed by the front to front overlap of dx square minus y square orbitals. So this is a very weak type of bond, and the energy of this bond is comparable to the hydrogen bond those we have in the organic chemistry. So these are the weaker type of bond. This is the example given here for the quadruple metal-metal bonds. This is the structure of your rhenium ion Re2Cl8 negative, and the two rhenium ions, they have uh, three fluorine atoms as a ligand, and the distances are mentioned here, and the distance between the chlorine is also given here. So you can see that the formation of the delta bond in the rhenium by overlap of dxy metal orbital of the two metals. So this is the dxy metal orbital, and when they overlap front to front, it becomes a weaker interaction, and the delta bond is formed. Now, apart from the bonding between the metal and metal atom, we also have the bridging ligands involved in such type of complexes. So now we will discuss about those bridging ligands present in the transition metal bimetallic complexes. So the first category we have is the X ligands become LX. So X ligand is the monometallic complexes become Lx for the group of your two metals in the bimetallic complex. And this X ligand, it actually brings the two metals close to each other. And the other two metals almost always form a metal-metal bond. So it is very much necessary to distinguish between the X ligand that have a non-bonding pair of electron. So they are what? They are generally the heteroatoms, right? They are generally the halogens, and that are already Lx ligand in the electron deficient monometallic complex. So Lx is like the halogeno, hydroxo, alkoxo, thiolato, amido, phosphido. These are the Lx type of things. So those that have a pair of pi electron. So they have pi electron involved in them, available on a nearby atom like the vinyl, allyl, alkyl, alkynyl. So these are the systems containing the pi electrons also. And those that do not have a pair of non-bonding pi electron, like we can have example of the H and alkyl. So in case of H and alkyl, they both do not contain pi electrons. So the second category is the X ligand having a pair of non-bonding electron. So they use this pair. What pair? That non-bonding electron, or which you generally call as lone pair of electron. So they use this pair of electron to become formally L ligands for the second metal, while the remaining X ligand for the first metal. So here you can see what does it mean. This is my X ligand. Suppose this is some halogen atom. So it is becoming the X ligand, that is, it is donating its electron, its negative charge to one of the metal to form a bond. But for the second metal, the bonding is what? It is donating its lone pair electrons, right? So for the first metal, it is a L type of X type of ligand, and it is L ligand for the second metal. So the L ligand for the second metal and X ligand for the first metal. So let us recall that in the monometallic complex, these X ligand become Lx with the electron deficient metal. So in fact, since the bridging ligand is symmetrical, located between the two identical metal fragments, it is also counted symmetrically. So it is equidistant from both the metal atoms, and it is counted Lx by 2, that is 1.5 electrons. So for each metal, fractional electron counts are sometimes found in the bimetallic complexes in which a single electron is delocalized over two metals. So it is donating two electrons and one here. So it is having a total of three electrons, and because the ligand is equidistant from both the metals, you will divide these electrons into two equal parts, that is 1.5 electron and 1.5 electron for both of the metal atoms. So they remain delocalized over the two metal atoms. Another example is given here of this palladium second complex. So in this palladium complex, you have PdL2X2. So you have PdL2, L is your this allyl, and X2 is your chloro. So in the above complex, you see each Pd fragment is in the form of PdL2X2. So the total number of valence electron will be 10 from the palladium itself, then 4 from your allyl, and 2 from the chloro, so it becomes 16. So now what happens? 2 electrons are less as from the 18 electron rule. So another means for the two metal centers to avoid a fractional electron count is to add an odd number of the charge for the bimetallic complex in which the two metals are bridged by the single Lx bridging ligand. So this is an example. You have two platinum atoms and they have LHL, two L on the each of the platinum, and just to avoid the fractional electron count, they just add up this charge. The two metals are bridged by a single Lx. Okay, just to avoid the odd electron count. So this pH2 is involved in the this type of complex and behaving like a bridging ligand, bridging between the two platinum atoms. So here the complex is having a formula: platinum L 2.5 X 1.5 0.5 charge. So the number of valence electron will be 16 here. So this is again 2 electrons shorter from the 18 electron rule. Now we have this X ligand having a multiple bond or a heteroatom in close proximity. They can bridge the two metals in the unsymmetrical way with an X ligand for one metal and L ligand for the other metal. So this is the type of bimetallic complex when you have two metal atoms involved. So this is the rhenium and this is tungsten, and you can see one of the ligands, that is your RCO. It becomes unsymmetrical, and it becomes X ligand for one metal, and for another it becomes L ligand. So this is again a very important example. Then for such type of complexes, we also have two electron, three center electron deficient bonds. So such type of bonding we have seen in the inorganic chemistry, and these are the electron deficient bonds. Generally, we also call them banana bonds. So the X ligands, when such type of bonding happens, when you have the X ligands of monometallic complex that do not have a non-bonding electron pair. For example, you see the example of hydrides or alkyls, where they do not have any extra electrons to get attached to the second metal atom. So then what will happen? Then such type of bonding takes place, that is two electron and three center bond, and because the mx sigma bond electrons, they have only two electrons involved here. So the sigma bond electron, they can serve as a ligand for the second metal nearby. The bridging ligand is symmetrical, so that the ligand is counted as Lx altogether. So the electronic contribution will be your Lx by 2, that is 1.5 electron for each of the metal. For example, you can see that the protonation of singly metal-metal bonded bimetallic anion, when the protonation is done, when a proton is added to such complex, they give a bridging hydride in which three atoms, that is MHM, they are bound in a triangle together with only a pair of electrons, serve to bind the two metals. So when only one electron is involved here, then you can say that it is what electron deficient in nature. So a pair of electrons. So two electrons are involved, and we have three centers. So this becomes two electron and three center electron deficient bond. Now the example is given here. We have chromium and chromium, CO5, CO5. Two fragments are attached together, and when the protonation is done for such type of complex, now you can see this proton is getting added between the two chromium, and now it becomes an electron deficient bond. And you see that the distance between the two metal atom, it has increased from 2.97 angstrom. Now after the protonation, it becomes 3.41 angstrom. This is due to the entry of this hydride behaving like a bridging ligand. So the above complex, it contains the bridging hydride which follows the 18 electron rule without counting the metal-metal bond. If the hydride is counted as Lx by 2 for each metal. So the each chromium is noted as chromium L5.5. Okay, you're counting it as half, X 0.5 minus. So the above dashed representation is often used. But since it is most often means 1 by 2 sigma bond, that is only one electron. 1 sigma bond, that is 2 electron, half sigma bond is only 1 electron. So it seems that there are 3 electrons all together, which is in excess by the 1 electron. Now, we have also seen such a two electron three center bond in the hydrides and alkyls of your lithium, boron, aluminum, beryllium, lanthanides, and actinides. So, in the example, in case of diborane, we have seen such bond, that is B2H6. The structure must allow each boron atom to satisfy the octet rule by using a bridging BH sigma bond as a ligand. So this is also an example of such a type of bonding. Then the alkyl groups are used, but more rarely, as the LX bridging ligand in some way, as described above for the bridging hydride. So the alkyl ligand, for one metal atom it becomes the X ligand, and for other it becomes the bridging ligand, donating its sigma electrons. One has a two electron three center MCM system. This is your such a MCM system, MCM, and this carbon, this alkyl group is behaving like a bridging ligand, and donating its sigma electron to the other metal atom. So this becomes LX. So there are also situations in which the CH bond of the methyl, alkyl or benzyl ligand X, it also serves as a L ligand for second metal, and it creates a dissymmetrical bridge, like in case of the vinyl and alkynyl. So these three centers, MCH bonds, they are what? They are agnostic in nature. So in one of the lectures, in one of the previous lectures, we discussed about the agnostic interactions. What are agnostic interactions? When one of the hydrogen it comes near to one of the metal involved in the bonding. So the sigma electrons involved in the CH bond, they are actually start interacting with the metal atom. So this becomes what? This is the agnostic interactions, and it shows the fluxionality. The fluxional behavior is displayed by such agnostic complexes. You cannot determine them by using the IR spectroscopy. Rather, you use both the IR and NMR spectroscopy to characterize such agnostic interactions. Then next we have the carbonyls and the X2 ligand of the monometallic complexes. They become X ligand for each metal when they bridge two metals. So in this case, your carbonyl ligand, it is the L ligand. When it becomes L ligand, when it is in the mono and polymetallic complexes, it is present, and it is a terminal ligand. That is, it is bonded to only one metal. So you can characterize such type of bonding by the infrared spectroscopy, and you get a peak at around 2000 angstrom, describing such type of interaction. When it bridges the two metals, when your carbonyl is behaving like a bridging ligand, the carbonyl becomes X2 ligand. Now what happens? Now it is behaving like a X ligand for each of the metal center. So, in case of the earlier examples, you see that the X ligand becomes L ligand. Here, the L ligand becomes X for both the metal atoms. This is a very special category. Now, it is the structure is that of the dimetal ketone, and its strong IR absorption is now found around 1650 centimeter inverse. Like in case of the earlier, when it was around 2000 centimeter inverse. Now, after such bonding, the similar frequency, that similar absorption is shifted to 1650 centimeter inverse in case for the organic ketones. So, like the carbon sulfide, carbon selenium, carbon tellurium ligands, they behave analogously, and we have other bridging X2 ligand, that are the X ligand for each of the bridged metals, are those that are already known. Like in case of the monometallic complexes, such as you know very well, we have already studied them, like carbenes or alkylidines, vinylidines, nitrido, phosphido, oxo, and sulfido. So such examples are mentioned here in the diagram, in which you see the complex of the manganese, bimetallic complex of manganese. Then you have a bimetallic complex of your cobalt, then molybdenum. In all these cases, you can see such behavior of your carbonyl. Then next category is when you have LX and L2X ligand of mononuclear complex that can bridge two metals. So they share the given electrons between the two metals, like Lx by 2, 1.5 electrons, and LX2 by 2, that is 2.5 electron for each metal. So both could be the possibility. This is the case for the allyl ligand, for chelating inorganic LX ligand, and even for the cyclopentadienyl. So the cyclopentadienyl bridging as a bridging ligand you have between the two palladium atoms, and also you have an allyl group involved here. So when you have a cyclopentadienyl, it will contribute a total of 5 electrons, and when you will share these electrons with the two metals, it becomes 2.5 and 2.5 for each of the metal atom. Similarly, when you have allyl involved here, it will be contributing 3 electrons, and 1.5 and 1.5 for the each of the metal atom will be contributed. In the second example, you have a molybdenum quadruple bond, and in such type of bonding, the bridging is by your carbonyl group, that is a ketonic group. So again, the contribution for such ligand will be divided half to each of the metal atom. So in these complexes, like in the case of first complex, you have PDL 2.5x. Your L is 2.5x, and the number of valence electron will be 10 plus 5 plus 1, and you have a total of 16 electrons. And similarly, you have MoL2x6. So you have total number of valence electrons, 6 from the molybdenum, 4 from 2L, and 6 from 6x. So you have a total of 16 electrons. So both of them, they are not following the 18 electron rule here. Now, another category is you have L2 ligands of monometallic complex, and they can bridge the two metals. So, again, you have an example of carbonyl here between the two ruthenium. So, one single bond exists between the ruthenium, and two ligands, they are two carbonyls, they are behaving like a bridging ligand. So, if you write the formula, it becomes for each of the fragment, it is RuL3. L3 and X4. So L3 is your 3L ligands involved here, and they are the your cyclopentadienyl carbonyl, and your X4. X4 is 4X ligands. You have PPH2, and these two are the bridging ones. So you divide them half and half, and total number of valence electron is 8 plus 2 into 3 plus 4. So 4 is from the 4x ligand, and 2 into 3 from each of the L. So you get a total of 18 electrons. So now in this case, you see that the bimetallic complex is following the 18 electron rule. Now benzene, it can also behave like a bridging ligand, and the derivatives of the benzene like cyclooctatetraene can also be involved here. Then you can also have naphthalene involved in this case. You can see this is like a dimerization of your ferrocene. So this is another category of your bimetallic complexes. So for each metal, half of the available ligand electrons are complete. So from today's lecture, I have two questions for you. The question number one is, first try to explain metal-metal bonding in the bimetallic transition metal complexes. How will you do that? You will take into account the d orbitals involved on the metal atoms, then how they overlap together by the application of molecular orbital theory, and by taking different examples, you can explain the possible electronic configurations between them. Then you need to draw the diagrams in order to explain the formation of sigma bond, pi bond, and delta bond in such complexes. The question number two is, you have to discuss different types of ligand in the bimetallic transition metal complexes. So you will take into account the different examples we discussed today, and then you will explain such type of complexes by taking the different bridging ligands. So these are the references. This book chapter has been took as a reference for today's lecture. So that is all from my side for today. Thank you so much.